Hi folks, this old Buster coming to you again. This is another good old story we had. It's called A Visit. Well, Buster had the lady fired up and raring to go when the boys all got there. What in tarnation has you all up in the air? Buster queried hired. Well, I called Bud over in Jacksonville, Florida, and told him we was coming for a visit and also needed his help and advice with something. He said to come on in and supper would be a-waiting for him. Now, y'all boys ain't got nothing pressing to holding you back to go for a few days as I know of. No, we surely don't, chortled all the boys. So what's the cooking, says Jesse. A little bird named Horace sent me a message that Mr. Hiram and Dalton and Devane was going to meet up with a bunch of us there at Bud's place. Now ain't that just a hoot, exclaimed Jesse. Something, said Howard, is sure enough afoot. Enough said, exclaimed Walter. Get her back, Buster. We got places to go and folks to see. Well, get that chaw out of your mouth there, Walter. You know you can't talk with that thing in there. And your mama gonna slap your jaws with that chaw in there. Anyway, sorry, folks. I have to get on to Walter every once in a while about that. The boys landed at Jacksonville International Airport and was directed to a private part of the airport to a hangar there with guards posted round it. Now, Mr. Holmes, Dalton, and Devane was in their own plane along with Bud there as well. Now, ain't this a sight, says Buster. All God's cheering just to welcome us home with open arms, piped up Walter. Well, light a spell, boys, says Mr. Holmes. We got to palaver a spell on what all we need to do. Well, after everybody got them something to drink and used the facilities, Mr. Holmes got right down to business. But he said, you know this part of the ocean gooder and better than anybody, and we need your input on finding and buying us an island. An island, exclaimed Buster. This is getting better and better. Sure is, said Dalton. Just wait to hear the rest of what all is going on. Now, Mr. Holmes continued on with his report. The island complex will be central headquarters for this part of the world. There will be two other locations, one in the Middle East and one for the northern areas. Exact sites will be told to you later on. The premise for building all these locations will be a humanitarian concern such as climate, health, and medical and human rights. Each location will house a secret laboratory with a fourth one for you boys under your new hangar. Well, all of them will have state-of-the-art equipment along with Jesse's lab, as we will call it, working closely with Area 51 and Area 52 and other contracted universities and organizations. Well, here's the problem, said Dalton. The terrorist organizations and the cartels ain't going to quit doing their dastardly deeds. As you all well know, there are no rules with those cutthroats. We is going to be well below the radar with no rules either, and we are taking the fight to them. We've been there and done that, you know. Bud, you is in for a penny, in for a pound. You swore to that the last time we met up. That means you is not only connected to the boys, but with the Presidential Corps. We have vetted your family, and all of y'all's families will meet with us real soon at the mansion in Kentucky. Well, let me be clear on this. Your families will be privy to some of what we is to be doing, but just us and a few selected trusted friends will know all of it because they will be part of it. You mean like Horace and Alfred? Asked Walter. Yep, and your Uncle Jeff. He and a few others have been with us from the beginning, and it goes without saying. Bud, we want you and the boys to scout for us an island that we can make secure and begin construction immediately. Any price restrictions, asked Bud. None. Jesse has a blank check, so if you find a place, buy it. Bud, you have a special set of skills knowing the islands and ocean like you do, so we is asking you to put them to good use for your country. Like you said, Mr. Hiram, I'm in for a penny and in for a pound. Well, everybody was just a grinning like a coon eating green persimmons when Bud said that. Now, Bud, your ma and pa will be getting a meeting with the president in the next few days explaining a few things. Now, they won't be getting all the information the boys' families have, or will be getting, but hate to say it, need to know. The president is talking to Gus, Big Jim, Mike, and Dubs right now as we speak to inform them what is coming in the following days. Whew. Boy, that's going to be a good one. We've been through all that down there in South America and whatnot, you know. It's the Illuminati, ain't it, says Buster. Yep, said Devane. They is back in force. It's the Muslim terrorists, cartels, Russians, Chinese, and North Koreans all wrapped up in one big package with a big red bow. This is the fight of a lifetime, said Dalton, and we just thought we'd been in one. Bud, just so you know how to calculate the cabbage, your friends have their ships chartered to follow y'all and try to figure out what all y'all's up to. All of them is carrying top-notch assassins, but the gals and Paul is ready for 'em. Well, Philip, J.P., that's Mr. Berger, is personal friends of mine, said Mr. Hiram, as we all go way back when I was a young man. So we all is on the same page. Clarence and Marie, along with the shark tooth, will be monitoring the situation as well. Danny and Liz will be in Martinique a month, and so will Connie and Paul, and one of us will try to be there as well at Philip and Sandrine's. It all depends if this all comes to a head or not. But we all know about secrets. Twixt all of us ciphering on a location of a good island, we ought to have a good ID for one pretty soon. Good luck to y'all, and here's a letter from the president for each of you. Open them after we leave. When Mr. Holmes and Dalton and Devane left, all the boys opened their letters from the president. What did yours say? Asked Buster to Jesse. Well, he asked me to look after the likes of y'all three and be extra careful. He didn't want nothing like the mansion attack to happen again. And he wanted me to work with some of his scientists for a little surprise for his and Mrs. along with Mr. Factor as well. What did yours say? Buster asked Jesse. Well, he asked me to use all my strength to quell this insurrection and keep the lot of us safe. He said he knowed of the pen of the Cheyenne dog soldiers, and Julian had come to him along with Black Kettle, and they wanted you to know they would be with y'all all the way in this. Walter said in his letter the president wanted him to put on his thinking cap and get to using that hay for his something more than a hat rack. He said he knowed of his potential for getting things done and bringing home the bacon. So quit being such a trickster and come alive and quit burning daylight. Walter needs it. Well, seems he knows you too well, said Buster, but he also believes in you, said Hired. He told me so. He did, said yep. Hired, tell us what he said to you. Well, the hate of the free world pretty well laid it on the line for me. He said not to take too many chances, but to take the fight to 'em. Them scoundrels deserve no mercy. He also said the quandary of your ma and her Christian beliefs she instilled in you is making it hard to take a life. He wanted me to know that it was hard for me, but if and I didn't and hesitated the least little bit, that millions of innocent lives would be lost. The Bible has always showed us the way as God's instrument in justice, and his in hand will lead you and the boys. Excuse me. Dalton told the boys to call him on the sat phone if and they found a place, and he would come to them and make a decision to buy it with Bud's recommendation. Plus, he wanted to know if and they had any contact or trouble with the assassins on the Vengeance or the Diamond Nista 2. All the boys said their goodbyes and settled in to make plans for the trip. Now, the boys had all manner of weapons on the lady, plus a goodly amount Dalton and Devane brung with them, so the boys was to be well armed. Bud was raring to head on out the next morning after he ordered all manner of supplies to last for a spell. They was to be left at the dock. Bud had arranged for them when they had got there. Lo and behold, they was in for one heck of a surprise when they got there. There stood Horace, just a grinning like a Cheshire cat, next to a brand spanking new Dreamline 49. Now, Bud near about spit out his teeth when he seen that ship. Horace said, Captain, do we have permission to board? You mean this is what we're sailing on? I was always on a real sailboat, not on no motor yacht. How big is she? Asked Bud, and come aboard. Well, let me give you some particulars about her, said Horace, if you're up for it. Well, sure enough, so I am, said Bud. Let us all go up on deck, and you can tell us all about her. Well, lead the way, Captain, said Horace. Well, Horace began to give them the lowdown on the ship and told them after they seen what he had, there would be some special features he would tell them about. Now, folks, you know I do a lot of research on this stuff and put it in these written stories, but I can't do it on the video. There's all 3 or 4 pages of the Dreamline 49, which is a fantastic piece of ingenuity by somebody building that ship. And if you ask for it, well, just write me at busterandtheboys@yahoo.com and I'll send it to you and you'll have everything. Well, anyway, they went on to say what all this thing had. And I won't get into that. But like Shark Tooth has that invisibility cloak that Clarence made for him, the ship has the invisibility cloak and the skin along with the Kevlar covering. Every kind of detection device you can imagine, plus some trickster lasers too. We ought to be ready to shove off soon then, said Jesse. Well, before we do, y'all got to know, along with your firepower, each one of your rooms has a bug-out bag and all manner of the new weapons that is in the rib. That's their tender. Each one of you has a sat phone too. Well, Alfred is already up top waiting for us, but there's one more thing we got to do before we head on out. What's that, said Bud. Well, Captain, we got to name the old gal. Any suggestions? Well, everybody went to putting their thinking caps on, except Buster, and he spoke up. I got the name for this here ship, and if it's agreeable to y'all. Well, what's that, asked Bud. The Empress. The Empress of the Sea. Well, all the boys and Horace and Alfred all wholeheartedly agreed. Bud said to Alfred to break out a bottle of champagne. We're going to christen this ship right here and now. Bud, will you do the honors being you as the first captain, said Buster. Sure enough, I will. Then Bud broke the bottle over the bow and they set sail for deeper waters. It took a bit to get the hang of operating the Empress, but it come to the boys in about a week with the help of Horace and Alfred. Mr. Holmes and his R&D people outfitted her to a T. Well, Horace and Alfred had been learned by the folks that built her, and they had been practicing for a month before they brung her to Jacksonville. They knew every inch of her. She even had a safe room with an underwater escape hatch and scuba equipment. Now, all the boys were really enjoying themselves on this trip, but they knowed it weren't for fun. This was for right important business that concerned the free world. Now, that being said, Bud led all of them all over the Atlantic, Pacific, and Caribbean oceans. During their time at sea, they happened by both the Vengeance and the Diamonista too. At one of the ports that called for them, they reported to Dalton that they was all well, which he relayed to Bud and the boys. Bud had an idea of an island that was uninhabited and might just have what they was looking for. It would take some doing, but would be perfect for what they needed. About 25 miles off the coast of Brazil, there's an island where no local would ever dare tread. It is off limits to everybody. It was called, now folks, I can't read all this stuff, Ilha de Queimada Grande or something, but it's also known as Snake Island. The danger on this island comes in the form of them golden lance-head snakes. It's a species of pit viper and one of the deadliest serpents in the world. The lance heads can grow to be over 1.5 feet long, and it's estimated there's between 2,000 and 4,000 snakes on the island. Just a little point of information, what do they eat? When birds migrate, they come in there and they kill them birds and eat the birds. That's what really is true. Buster called up Dalton and said they think they found the island they was looking for. Won't be easy, but it can be done. Can you meet us in the Puerto del Buceo Marina in Montevideo, Uruguay? Sure enough, said Dalton. We'll be there in 3 days, waiting to see what you got for us. Bud had the Empress underway to Montevideo when Buster made his and called to Dalton, and he wasn't going to let no grass grow under his feet neither. They was getting it for sure. Dalton and Devane met up with the boys and Bud along with Horace and Alfred on the evening of the 3rd day on the Empress. Wasn't no worries about any of their conversations being heard by any nefarious yahoos with them EMP technology and signal jammers running full blast that they had. Buster hated up the meeting of telling Dalton and Devane Snake Island was a place if a few things could be worked out. First off, getting the island. Jesse said he figured Brazil would give up the island to the U.S. if and they forgive their debt to them. it was somewhere around $727 billion. And that was a while back. Second thing was them snakes, them golden lancers. Howard said there was an anti-venom, but they would have to get their scientists on that problem. The herpetologists could tell how to deal with them snakes. The good thing is the island was uninhabited and everybody was scared of even going there. Brazil had the island off limits to every Tom, Dick, and Harry at that. The island had plentiful water and a rainforest as well. Drilling at depth for the facility wasn't going to be no problem neither. When Buster, Howard, and Walter knowed about the tunneling the Air Force had been doing underground with their huge drilling machines. Helicopters using stealth technology could bring in supplies, and ships and submarines could come in on the backside of the island. Devane said, "You boys sure enough been busy. We got to talk to Mr. Holmes and the President and fill them in on what all they got to say. But good work, real good work," said Devane Dalton. "We sure enough got to keep this on the down low. The scoundrels on the charters of our friends are sure enough doing all they can to figure out what all is doing. That's for sure. They want to know what y'all are doing, and by doing that, they're going on their charters. We will get back to you as soon as we can, but sail on out the Caribbean and keep them guessing. By the way, how's the ship Mr. Hiram got you?" "Oh, she's finer than frog hair," said Buster. "Old Bud near about took a shine to her right off the bat. We all named her the Empress of the Sea. Mr. Holmes told him to tell you that she's yours, boys." "Well, if that's so, we want to dock her there in Jacksonville with Bud." "Fine with us," said Dalton. "We might have to take y'all up on a cruise with the gals sometime soon." "Y'all ain't seen them in quite a spell," said Devane. "Look at Farmers to it," said all the boys. Bud cranked up the Empress after bringing on more supplies and headed on out to the Caribbean to meet up with Philip and Sandrine's place in Martinique with all their other friends. On the way, Howard had an encrypted call from his friend at Area 52 asking him if he could stop off Summers for his package. Howard said he could in Aruba, if that was okay. Well, his friend said they had been waiting for him, but take his time, he needed a little vacation from the desert. Bud set course for Aruba. Then sitting out on the deck that evening sipping on old McBrayer, the questions come hot and heavy from the boys. "Well," said Howard, "I got a surprise for us, my new toy." "Oh, this is going to be good," said Walter. "Well, what is it?" said Buster. "We's dying to know." "I ain't a-telling till we get to Aruba." "Ain't no fair," said Walter. "You ain't going to get me like you did in Star on that there Lamborghini in Denver." "Oh, don't get your britches in a wad. Y'all will love it." All the boys had a nice uneventful cruise to Aruba, and it sure enough was relaxing like. Bud docked where the U.S. Navy used the facilities in Aruba, and Howard's friend Omer Archibald McPherster come out to meet him. "Well, how in the world did you know Omer was a-working at Area 52, said Buster. "Well, we kept in touch after Omer went off to school to MIT and went to work for Uncle Sam. I reckon he learned all that mechanicking at his and folks' junkyard. Omer always was pretty darn smart. Omer sat on down and Jesse poured him a snort of old McBrayer and then told him to spit it out. What did he bring to Howard? Well, Howard just sat on back just a-grinning whilst Omer give him all the lowdown what he brung. It was being loaded as they was a-speaking. "Well, what is it?" piped up Walter. "It's a one-of-a-kind mini-submarine loaded with every kind of armament you can imagine. It is powered by a magnetic nuclear propulsion. It can carry 4, but as big as Buster is, he would have to ride on top along with Walter. It has a newfangled stealth technology and invisibility. Ain't nothing like it in the world. Just might need to, use it on a little caper you boys is on." "Really?" they said. "Well, thanks, Omer, and we all is glad to see you. Now that we know where you's a-bedding down, we will have to stay in touch." "Gotta run, boys," now said Omer. "Enjoy your new toy, Howard. By the way, Howard, the other thing is just about ready. I'll let you know when. The General and Mr. Holmes want to know how it does when you get it. Oh, and another thing, Hired, as Omer saluted Hired, you ain't heerd yet, but you is now a 2-star general. Well, ain't that a mouthful, said Buster. Let's go, boys, and take a gander at your new toy, Hired. And they all let it shut down below where the tender was stowed. Boy, howdy, ain't she something. I just can't wait to take her for a spin. Guess we will have to wait till we get to Martinique. That night in Aruba, the boys had some unexpected visitors. Connie and Paul had docked in Aruba as well and went to dinner and then returned and went to bed, not expecting no trouble. Their guests left out in the day to night and boarded the Empress to get to the boys. They had satellite surveillance and seen the mini-sub being loaded and unloaded on the Empress. That started the ball rolling for them as their bosses told them to find out what was going on and kill all but one to do the talking. Well, they should have known better, 'cause all the boys was a-waiting for them. When they tried to get to Buster, Hired was there too and shot one of the assassins dead on the doornail. Buster collared the other one and didn't kill him outright, but he sure enough knowed he found trouble and was in a tussle for sure. Buster broke the feller's arm, leg, and a few ribs to boot. He just wasn't no match for Buster's strength. All the boys gathered round for the interrogation and knowed it would take a right bit of convincing to get him to talk. The right feller for that was Devane, and Jesse called him on the sat phone. Devane told him to keep the prisoner hogtied and he'd be there in the morning. When Devane showed up, he was madder than a wet hen, I tell you. He told Bud to take the Empress out to sea and drop anchor. Devane was an expert at getting the truth out of a person for sure, as all the boys knowed from their past escapades. It didn't take long till Devane come up to the boys and told them what all he had learned. It wasn't good at all. They was an advance team ordered to get information on the project, as he called it, and kill everybody else. Don't forget the Illuminati had a history with the boys in the Presidential Corps and was bound and determined to wipe them out. The assassins was mercenaries and only knowed so much, but what he did know was there was a mothership sitting out in the ocean waiting for orders to attack. There was more mercs, jihadists, and Chinese making up the force of such soldiers to wage war on them. The mercenary did not live to see daylight, and he was unceremoniously dropped overboard for fish food. Well, Bud brought the Empress up alongside of Diamonista too and sent the tender to fetch Connie and Paul. Alfred was driving the tender. He just loved that thing. Buster had called Connie and Paul and given them the news that they didn't have guests anymore and to meet them out to sea. Well, after Connie and Paul got on board the Empress, Devane filled them in on what happened and asked them all to follow him to Martinique to visit with Philip and Mr. Holmes. When they all got to Martinique, Danny and Liz was there. Seemed like they took exception to those two Peckerwoods trying to take advantage of them. Funny thing was, Sharktooth come up on them and dispatched them two assassins before they could harm a fly. Seems like Clarence had been monitoring them and Sharktooth following them in the dang invisible boat of his. Well, old Sharktooth wasn't no spring chicken, but underestimating him would have you pushing up daisies. Wasn't no harm going to come to them two gals for sure. Not to say they couldn't take care of themselves, but they was near about family to Sharktooth and Maureen. When everybody got settled at Philip and Sandrine's place, Mr. Holmes and J.P. Berger showed up. Mr. Holmes brung everybody up to speed what was happening and what was going to happen. The fate of the free world was in balance again with the Illuminati leading the way. They all had to work together to set it all right. About that time, Philip got a call and told him there was a satellite feed coming to him. Clarence and Marie was there too. The President of the United States of America come on and said hello to all of them, then addressed the elephant in the room. The President said, "Y'all, the select few, was the only ones who would know the whole story. Loose lips sunk many a ship, and there was moles in government and elsewhere that is undermining all our efforts. I'm asking all y'all to focus all your attention to this fight for right. I will use all my power, all my resources to quell this attack on all of us. Please understand that absolutely no one but y'all can know what we is about to undertake. We all know one another, and that's how it has to be. The Presidential Corps and the Caribbean Group will spearhead this mission. Others will be brought in later on as the need arises. But only y'all will have the whole picture. Philip, JP, and Hiram will coordinate with me and lead our army of patriots. Hired, there's a new prototype jet out on the tarmac when y'all decide to leave the mansion in Kentucky. All the families will be notified when to meet there. I will be in attendance as well. I am in hope we can accomplish this in 2 days' time. Thank y'all for volunteering for peace and freedom. In 2 days' time, everybody was gathered at the mansion. Of course, many of them gathered there, never been at Kentucky nor the mansion before. They never see the like of food, and especially the old McBrayer and the distillery. Those in attendance was Buster and the boys and their maws and paws, Bud, Horace, Alfred, Mr. Hiram Holmes, Dalton, Devane, Sharktooth and Maureen, Danny and Liz, Connie and Paul, Clarence and Marie, and of course the president. They discussed the need of the project and the 3 locations, with Snake Island being the first one, and what all it would take to make that happen. If successful with Snake Island, the other 2 should go without too many hitches. Some of y'all will be needed full-time and some of y'all as on an as-need basis. But I ask all of y'all to be on call at all times until Snake Island is up and running, said the president. Any revenue y'all will lose will be paid in advance. The president went on to say that Buster and the boys and their families have had their war with the Illuminati before and know of the sacrifices that was made and lives lost. But let me make this absolutely clear. Those attacking us and our way of life will not be given any mercy. The fight is to the death. If there's any questions or reservations of going forward, not one of those in that meeting failed to make the commitment to stay the course, I'm here to tell you. The president thanked all of them for being there and reminded them all of an absolute total secrecy pact. After the president left on out, all of them had a bang-up time and really relaxed and enjoyed themselves. The Caribbean group just couldn't believe the food. It was different from what they ate, but it was magnificent. It was like Christmas and Thanksgiving all rolled into one. The little Christian church had services for them and dinner on the ground. The distillery, an interesting piece of history, and the secret room and the documents it contained was spellbinding. The dance and party was a sure enough treat. Now, Sharktooth and Maureen sure did enjoy Strawberry Hill and the pure ice-cold water of the spring. Philip and Sandrine rode the countryside on the horses on the farm. All the women folk got together for a little girl talk. The men folk sat in the parlor with the old McBrayer and some right fine cigars from the tobacco grown on the farm. Near about everything they ate was raised on the farm. Organic, they called it. The evening before they was all to leave out, Mr. Holmes, Philip, and J.P. asked them all to the sitting room. Well, Mr. Holmes said, "When we all leave here, we gotta hit the ground a-running. There's no guarantee of any of us being back. We might never be back here again, but we is going to do our day level best and ask the good Lord to bless us in our task. Y'all all know what to do and any questions and who to ask. Make all your arrangements to be available at a moment's notice and keep your eyes and ears open. The people we is dealing with is worse than the snakes on the island. I wish y'all all Godspeed and safe travels." Then J.P. and Philip said a few words and told them all it was an honor to be by their side in this venture. We was to all be leaving in the morning, and I know all of us has got to know each other, and we have the speed of trust and the love of one another. Know that we carry each other in our hearts. Well, Buster hollered, "Let's eat," and headed for the table. Grandma Clara had a smile on her face and said, "That boy can eat." Miss Sarah told Jesse he was to clean his plate, and Maureen told Sharktooth not to eat it all. "Well, I got to hurry or Buster was to eat it all and I ain't nothing going to be left for me." Believe it or not, Horace was the first one to the table, with Alfred coming in second. He done been there before and knowed how it would go if he didn't get a head start. Paul got in the kitchen with the ladies and got to cooking with them. He said he learned what Southern cooking was all about. The ladies said they really enjoyed him being in the kitchen with them and welcomed him back at any time. Now it was time to get to it when they all flew out the next morning after all the goodbyes, hugs, and tears. The fat was in the fire for sure now. Ain't nobody forgot that shipload of soldiers sitting in the ocean awaiting on them either. The Empress headed out to Snake Island with a shipload of soldiers a following them. The first thing that happened was 200 mongooses were dropped off at the build site. The snakes had to be cleared from the area before work could commence. This was done at night where nobody could see what was going on, and the bad guys just couldn't figure out what was going on. Them dang soldiers didn't want to go on that island for sure. Well, Howard launched his new toy late in the afternoon as to recon the island. Mr. Holmes wanted all the information about the island as he could get. Jesse went with Howard along with Alfred to survey the perimeter for any information that might help. Howard made both high and low tide to find out just what all was different that could help them. Well, at low tide they found an underwater cavern and explored it as best they could. Howard and Alfred put on scuba gear to get a better look in the cavern while Jesse stayed on the sub. Well, Alfred found a lava chute that would take them to the surface with a little work done to it to widen it on out. They could get up there. Well, Howard found another one much bigger but couldn't go all the way without the proper gear. Mr. Holmes could get some of his experts to go in it and see what could be done. But the little chute was the cat's meow for sure right now. Just got to make sure no snakes got them when they come up to the surface. More mongooses, I reckon, said Howard to Alfred and Jesse. After getting back to the Empress, Howard called Dalton and gave him what all they found. Dalton said that was good news. Howard said he wanted to send up his drone the next day and also at night to get the lay of the land and check on the mongooses and the lava chutes if they could be seen. Howard had the coordinates, so it should be easy. Well, after Howard flew his drone the next day and night, it sure enough gave him a darn good idea about some things. First off, the coordinates of the location of the lava chutes was spot on, and a body could see the indentations in the earth where they would come up. This would allow underwater access without being seen. Next was the carnage of them mongooses. Dade snakes every which a place. There was a few Dade mongooses, but not that many. Howard said he recommended more mongooses to be released on the island. The last thing Howard seen was a source of fresh water. Howard said that was a good thing for him to get to building pretty soon. Horace and Alfred got on the phone with Dalton and said if the bad guys seed any of them or anybody going on the island, the fat would be in the fire in their opinion. Alfred said they ought to take them out before they hit them. Sink them with a torpedo from a sub is his take on it, and now. Well, Dalton said to hang on a minute. With a click or two, Mr. Holmes come on the line with Dalton. Mr. Holmes asked Howard if he could do it, and Howard told him it weren't no problem. They can't outrun me and can't run me out of fuel with this new magnetic nuclear propulsion system. Heck, fire, I could go round the world if I wanted to. Well, okay, said Mr. Holmes, do it at about 14 bells. Is that all right with you? Sure enough, I'll get her done. Well then, go to it, General, and happy hunting. Dalton said he would watch it all on the satellite, but wanted to warn them all that this is just the beginning. Ain't no telling what the Illuminati will do when the ship goes down. I'm going to notify all our friends and families to be extra careful now and bring everybody into the roost. We need all our chickens alive and well. I'm serious, Howard. We've been there and done that with this bunch, and when we stir the hornet's nest, it just ain't no telling what they're going to do. Tell your people to stay sharp and holler for help if they need it. I'll do that and make sure they all know how bad it can get. Our folks already know, you know. Thanks, Dalton. Stay safe. 14 bells right on the dot. Howard barbecued that ship full of ne'er-do-wells. Didn't have no idea how many was aboard, but the more the merrier as far as he was concerned, said Alfred. He said they done killed too many of his friends and turnabout fair play to him. Howard said he understood and he was there at the mansion. As he was there at the mansion, Alfred said he knowed that and seed what happened there, he'd never forget. May all rest in peace, but payback is coming for 'em by my hand if and I have anything to do with it. I'm with you all the way, said Howard. Let's go home. Tomorrow will be a heck of a day, I'm sure. Let's get ready. Give this dang thing some gas and get us to the Empress. I want some of them fried peach pies if Buster ain't eat 'em all. The next day, near about 11 o'clock, the skies was a-buzzing with airplanes and ships was a-circling the island. A U.S. Navy destroyer showed up as well as our Air Force telling all them interlopers this was U.S. sovereign territory and to vacate the airspace and keep a 12-mile distance from the island with their ships. If not, they'd be fired on. Both the President of the U.S. and the President of Brazil went on record about the sale of Snake Island to the U.S. The President of the U.S. said it was done for humanitarian reasons. The sale price was leaked as well. $727 billion, which was what Brazil owed the U.S. for loans. A U.S. nuclear submarine was dispatched to the island as well with a contingency of SEALs in combat readiness. 6 SEALs were put on board the Empress under General Howard Holmes' command. American installations and embassies around the world was taking heat. The Illuminati was figuring on gaining ground. War drums was a-sounding, that's for sure. Betwixt the Illuminati and the cartels, the Caribbean and South America was a hotbed of violence. Dalton and Devane took the fight to them every which way you could imagine. They was bombing them using high-tech lasers and plain old hand-to-hand combat with our latest weaponry. The bombing went on day and night. Same for the Middle East, excepting it was nuclear bombs. Danny and Liz was on back to port when the PT boat started chasing them down. They would have been captured excepting for a missile that come out of nowhere, blew it to Kingdom Come. Connie and Paul was attacked on Saba and managed to take down 8 mercenaries with the new Gatling gun and Maw Deuce fore and aft they had installed by Philip and Sharktooth. All the menfolk of the boys' families went through about the same as before with attacks on their home and attempted kidnappings of the girls. The menfolk was stacking them high, I tell you. 'Tweren't their first rodeo, you know. All their friends and neighbors was helping out as well. The whole county rallied around them with standing guard, going with them whilst doing their shopping, schooling, and work. The sheriff deputized all the menfolk and kin as well. The problem was Bud's folks, so they agreed to go back to the mansion till all the shooting was over. Mr. Holmes told them to pack as if they was a-staying for a spell. Work was going on night and day on the island, but you never could see anything being done. Night brought work upon top of the island where the mongooses cleared the area of the snakes. Daylight had construction going on in the cavern and lava chutes. Supplies and materials were brought in by stealth helicopters and submarines. Work on facility was progressing at a rapid pace, that's for sure. Things started to wind down after a bit. The cartels decided there was too much heat with all the bombing and laser attacks. The Muslim jihadists also broke ranks with the Illuminati with the decimation from missile and bomb attacks coming from every which place. Israel sure wasn't sitting still, I tell you. The Russians, Chinese, and North Koreans decided they didn't have a dog in the fight either and bowed out, not wanting to take on the U.S. and their allies. That left only the Illuminati and their mercenaries, and they hadn't raised their ugly heads in a while. Well, everybody got to what they was a-doing when Mr. Holmes asked all of them if they would come back to the mansion in Kentucky for a few days. Everybody said sure enough, and planes was furnished for them all to get there and back. The whole bunch met up at the mansion on Tuesday night and had a big old supper awaiting for them. I reckon I ought to tell you what they had to eat. No finer feast was ever set for anybody. Whilst everybody was getting ready for supper, Buster and the boys and Bud had a set tea with Mr. Holmes and Dalton and Devane. Whilst everybody was getting ready for supper, Buster and the boys and Bud had a set tea with Mr. Holmes and Dalton and Devane about what all was going on. Buster asked him why didn't the Illuminati attack the island. Dalton said they did, and he just ain't said nothing yet. We ain't heard about that, said Walter. Nope, 'tweren't no need. Why's that, said Buster. Well, we flew in 300 more mongooses that nobody knowed about at night. The Illuminati didn't know nothing about the mongooses and the build site. That is why our build site was pretty much free of the snakes, but not outside our perimeter, though. The Illuminati flew in 2 platoons consisting of 100 men, and they all parachuted in the dark outside our perimeter. Reckon they figured on a recon and sneaking in on the build site. They just didn't know how bad them snakes was. Guess they figured all was clear since we was there. Them snakes done a number on all 100 of them mercs. Some of them men had so many bites a body couldn't count them. All died with their boots on and good riddance. "Reckon that's a tale worth telling but can't be told," said Bud. "That's for sure," said Mr. Holmes. "Now it's time to get on to eat." There was pan-fried taters, Buster's favorite, mashed taters, sweet taters, and baked taters. There was sweet corn on the cob, fried corn, asparagus casserole, fried cabbage, steak, and white brown gravy, fried pork chops, fried chicken, jumbo bob white quail, and black currant sauce, sweet tater casserole, Brussels sprouts, green beans, sweet cornbread, triple yeast rolls, fried frog legs, cauliflower, broccoli, Grandma's lime jello salad, a regular green salad, ham, and desserts. Dessert was pecan pie, apple pie, lemon pie, fried peach pies, homemade ice cream, chocolate pie, key lime pie, strawberry shortcake, and persimmon pie, sweet iced tea, and coffee and milk to drink. Steve and Sandra Joom had the mansion and grounds done up real pretty. It was first class, world class in fact, no expense spared. This was the home place of Buster, Jesse, and the boys, and now all of the rest of the clan and friends. There was an addition built on where it was like the best hotel you could find. It had 8 bedrooms with its own shower, bath, and sauna and hot tub, with complete privacy and being soundproofed as well. After supper at a little old McBrayer and a plantation cigar, the president got up to talk. "We gonna have to quit meeting like this. I can't button my shirt nor breeches eating like this." Well, everybody just laughed, and the president went on to tell where we was in this world of meanness and subterfuge. He went on to say to never let your guard down, as y'all folks know from past experience. The Illuminati is not eliminated, but they are licking their wounds. Y'all have done an admirable service to your country and the world. I could give y'all each awards and medals, but what would that prove for the service y'all have done for our country and the world? All I can say to y'all, each and every one of you will go down in the annals of history of this great land. There are several leaders in the world that want to say thank you for your service. The leaders is Great Britain, Canada, Israel, Australia, Germany, France, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Czech Republic, Austria, Netherlands, Italy, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and all the rest of NATO. As the country was called, the leader of the country said thank you in their language and in English. A signed document with all their name will be issued to each one of y'all for y'all service to all countries. "Wow," said Jesse, "that is something, ain't it, boys?" "Sure enough is," says Buster. "Thank you, Mr. President, for this honor." The president said there's one more thing he had to do before he left, and he asked Howard and his parents as step formers. "For your undying dedication to duty, I pin these stars on you for the rank of Major General in the United States Air Force." Old Howard then saluted the president, then shook his in hand. His ma and pa was a grinning from ear to ear, and Miss Shirley was a shedding a tear or two. After all the doings, everybody had a little old McBrayer to celebrate. Buster had a few words to say to everybody that was there. "We have family, old friends, and new friends, and this will always be your home, our home away from home here at the mansion. Don't be strangers. Make arrangements for Christmas here at the mansion and bring all your family if they want to come. There will be lots of doings, eating, and presents aplenty and fun. All of us flying, we have plenty of planes, so don't say no. Shark Tooth?" "Yeah, Buster, what is it?" "We gotta go." "Go where?" "Bear hunting." "Bear hunting? What for?" "We got to wrestle one." "Lord Almighty, what's he getting me into?" And they took off a running. Well, you think that's the end of this here story, but it ain't. The bear is one that lives on the place in the hole on the North 40. He is about as tame as he can get. Buster wrestles him all the time. Well, after Philip and J.P. and Paul and Connie and Danny and Liz got back to Martinique and was getting off the plane, they was attacked. Shark Tooth and Clarence and Marie come in a little bit before them and seed what was going on and took the fight to the mercenaries. Philip, J.P., and Paul was protecting the gals, and all of them took a hit. Lucky it weren't serious, but it was enough to put them down for a spell. Paul, being the youngest, bounced back quicker than Philip and J.P. Shark Tooth and Marie tracked down the survivors of the mercenaries and laid them to rest in Davies Jones' locker. One of them was the great-great-nephew of Ansel Meyer. "Just turned another page of the Illuminati," said J.P. "Hope it's the last." That's old Buster for you, saying have a good evening and a blessed day.